So I thought I'd make a few videos, not as a physical demonstration, but just talk about some of the stuff we've learned in 30 years of being in business, and a lot to kind of counteract some misinformation that's out there, and just give you my opinion. My opinion is my opinion, so there are bias. I've been a dealer, a servicing facility. I never have represented Mercury, Yamaha, or anybody like that. So we build our own motors. We put our own name on it. So we're unbiased on that in that situation. We're not exactly unbiased when it comes to the way we've been doing things. So everybody has biases. I figured I'd tell you what mine are. The title of this one is Aftermarket Parts versus Original Equipment Parts. A lot of places will say, you'll hear it, we only use original equipment parts. Well, we just got through a pandemic and there's still parts shortages now. And if any dealer had that policy, chances are they wouldn't be able to finish half the boats they worked on, because OEM, they are also called original equipment parts, were hard to come by, worse than aftermarket. In this environment and in any environment, when this boating season's so short, you really have to get whatever parts are available, make sure they're good quality, and install them. Sometimes, of course, if a motor's under warranty, you have to use OEM parts, so that's okay. I kind of understand that policy. So I'm going to start by the benefits of aftermarket parts, and that's probably what my bias is for, because without aftermarket parts, I probably wouldn't be able to be in business. But number one advantage, these are all the advantages, is they are less expensive. That doesn't necessarily mean they're not as good quality, but they are less expensive. So that's a good thing. Almost every time they have a longer warranty. And in the case of two companies that come to mind, they don't only cover the price of the part, but they cover the labor to install one part. And I could list no less than 10 examples where we've received over $10,000 in compensation from one company because their parts failed, and they repaid our labor, which was really nice. OEM or original equipment almost never does that. I've never heard of it. They don't have to. I mean, you're kind of forced to buy their parts if you're under warranty. So, of course, it's under warranty. The dealer's being paid for the labor anyways. And I am being paid at our full labor rate, no discount. So, a lot of paperwork, but that's to be understood. So the next advantage is they're easier to find. There's more places that sell them. There's generally more of them made. So basically wider distribution, I should say. So oftentimes they're the same as OEM. I have an example here. Of a aftermarket part, and it'll be, but as you can see, faded is the OEM part number, and if you look up that part number, a Yamaha part will come up. So obviously this part, which is the carburetor rebuild kit, was made, is in the same box. It's made by the same company, and it's also you should know that most of the time, whether it's a aftermarket distribution center or an OEM, quite often the parts are not made by Mercury, they're not made by Sierra, they're not made by EMP. They sub out these certain parts to specialized companies, like a specialized company for gaskets, whatever, and that's how it's made. You're just buying it from a distribution center. They put their name on it, but they didn't really make it. So it's Mercury. Some of the hard parts on Mercury, obviously, they made it, like gears and pistons. Oftentimes, the aftermarket, and it's not perceived this way, are better quality. Not every time, but quite often. If you talk to any rebuilder, like we are one, they pretty much all tell you the aftermarket pistons, and mainly the pistons are better and more complete kit. They come with the rings. You talk to any machinist, they all say, well, if you use the OEM pistons, it used to be you'd have to order them ahead of time so they could measure them because they were very size-wise. The OEMs are all dead nuts. They're supposed to be 20 over, they're 20 over. They're supposed to be a 3.5 inch bore, they're 3.5. Dead nuts every time. We check them, still check them, but I don't think we've had them off yet, maybe one or two in 30 years. So that's not bad. So now I've got an example here. This is a original equipment mercury seal. Granted, this is from a long time ago. But they used to make their crankshaft seals, which is exposed. This particular one's the bottom one. It's exposed to salt water. So it really shouldn't be steel. It was steel. And this rubber part of the seal is the seal. It's supposed to be attached to the steel part of the seal. It's a crankshaft seal. But it rusted and it came off. Like that. So that's OEM. At the same time, these aftermarket seals were being made. You can see the rubber is bonded all the way to the edge, so it really can't. Even if it did rust, it couldn't break off. So this is a much better made seal. And it's stainless steel. In Mercury's defense, they started putting these seals in very soon after they realized their mistake. So, but the best thing you need to do is always compare. You break it out of the box. Hopefully you can compare it to the old part if you haven't thrown it away, and it's never a good idea to throw away a part until the job is done. And compare it to your replacement part. Two, you're going to make sure they put the right part in the box, the part was ordered right, it looks the same. You can break out your micrometers, your measuring instruments, measure everything up, make sure it's the same, make sure it measures up, stuff like that, because it's a lot of work to get at these parts. You don't want to install a part that's wrong, and don't assume because it's a new part it's good. We probably had, with one manufacturer, I'm not going to mention their name, but they were probably running about 40% of their parts were good. So 60% of their parts failed out of the box. We kept using them because the certain parts, they were the only ones making them, and they were an aftermarket company. We told them about it. They're working on it. They actually helped us out a little bit on the pricing and stuff, so that was good. Everybody makes mistakes, but when they don't admit to them, that's a real problem. So, all right, and then the next section is benefits of original equipment parts. So, and again, remember, I'm biased towards aftermarket, but often, if I had to pick what's a better quality in general, probably OEM or original equipment. So, but if you don't compare them every time, there's specific exceptions to that rule, and there's a wider variety of OEM parts because they made the whole motor, so they're going to have every part. Where the aftermarket companies are going to just skim off and give you the parts that fail regularly. The gaskets, the carburetor kits, the thermostats, the water pumps. They're not going to do a reverse gear for a newer motor usually because to produce that one gear, they're not going to sell enough to make money. So most of the time you're forced to get OEM or used part. So as we talked about, they generally don't have any warranty. Sometimes if you argue hard enough, like I had to do with Mercury, they'll actually give you the price of the part back. They will, without exception, I've never seen them, correct me if I'm wrong, give you your labor rate back. So that's a big disadvantage. And they can get away with it. They make the motor. So as I touched about, there's more selection. So you can get any part. So if you wanna just go to the dealer, but sometimes you have to get on the internet or talk to a guy like us that's independent and get you an aftermarket part. Just about as easy to get anything on the internet now, which is really nice, even OEM parts. So, but again, you have to be your own, in summation, you have to be your own judge. You have to be able to be a good mechanic, technician, whatever you want to call yourself. Even if you're doing it by yourself, you need to compare every part. You know, the carburetor kit like this is, take the carburetor, make sure every gasket fits perfectly. We did have a problem where the gasket didn't fit and it blew the motor apart. So you have to compare everything. Compare it to the old parts, even the old gaskets, save them. Make sure they look the same. They might have made a great product, but in assembly, when they're putting the stuff in the box, somebody threw the wrong gasket in there, and it could be just a little bit off where you got to try it, and it'll cause a major failure, a major fuel leak, a major water leak, cause many problems. So just compare. It's sort of like old Ronald Reagan said, trust but verify. So that's your best bet. A lot of good parts out there, but you have to check. You have to be, it's part of being a good technician.